All right, good morning. Okay, so you have successfully made it to this stage where you have done your brainstorm list, you have come up with your symbols for that list, and you have made designs for that list and picked the one that you like the best. Okay, so that's where we're at this point. Your design should have been approved by your teacher at this point, and now it's time to figure out how to get this design onto your finished paper, your finished size paper. How do we get it from that spot? So the biggest thing that we're going to talk today about is proportions and looking where things fall on the page in relationship to the bigger paper, so that you're doing things to scale. So when you look at this one, it's always easiest and best to start with the larger shapes first. Okay, start with the larger shapes first. So that would be this kind of S shape that was right here. Now I want to look, and I noticed that this starts kind of, this is about the halfway point. So it's about a little halfway over and maybe about a quarter of the way over here. So that helps me figure out where it starts. And then I know that it's going to finish below half on the other side. So by doing that, looking at those cues are going to help me figure out where everything goes. And then as I start overlapping, it's okay if some of those things shift a little. That's bound to happen. But you can't end up with a bunch of negative space again. You can't end up without your objects overlapping. You've got to make sure that the integrity of the composition that was approved by your teacher is still there. So making sure that you make those first objects large enough and really pay attention where things fall are key to that success. So let's start by doing this. I'm going to put this on this side. I don't think you can see it at the same time, but that's okay. Oh, yeah, no, that's all we can do. All right, so I'm going to start. And again, I'm paying attention to where those shapes are and where they are in relation to the big paper so that they fall in the same spot. So sometimes that can be a little difficult. Drawing those big shapes, one of the things that I do, I don't move my hand like this. I don't move my wrist. If you noticed, when I drew this big shape, I locked my wrist and I drew that big shape and I moved my arm. And that will help you get those big shapes down. That'll help you throughout the whole year when we're sketching and drawing and everything that we do. Locking that wrist and doing those big sweeping motions will help you. So as I continue on, I'm going to start thinking of some of the other shapes. This is another nice big shape that I can find in my sketch. This kind of square shape that was the house at one point. I'm going to do that shape. It doesn't come quite. And by all means, use a ruler. Rulers are nice at this stage because you get some nice clean lines. I think for the house I didn't need it, but for the vertical lines I will use a ruler. So as I do this, I'm going to come by here and I'm starting to get some of the main structures, and I'm paying attention to those details that were there to begin with. So as I have that shape, another big shape I'm going to do is the tail, the dog's tail. If you remember, that was the dog's tail. I'm going to do that one. All right, now from here on out, now that I have some of these major shapes in here, everything else starts to get easier. So I'm going to put this on high speed so you could just watch me work. But in the reality, the main things, you don't want to forget all the things we discussed on the thumbnails. You want those variety of shapes in there. Don't lose your size and your scale when you're blowing it up big. Think about how things overlap. If something's a little smaller than you wanted it to be from your thumbnail to your paper, and you don't want to necessarily erase it, that means you're going to have to add something. And that runs into other issues that you may have. So sometimes erasing is your best bet. Sometimes it's adding something else. But try your best to get those proportions. All right, here we are. So I have finished my drawing, and this is what you're going to do at this point. You're going to draw from your thumbnail to your finished paper. If you notice, I did add a couple more details because I felt like there were some big empty spaces. And looking, I still feel like this space is actually kind of big and empty. So I'm going to add one more little shape in here that was not on my thumbnail. But what happens is when it gets larger, sometimes you realize that there's space that you could have utilized better. And so I'm going to add a little bit of shape in here just to kind of give it a little more interest and detail in that negative space. That big area becomes negative space and you don't want it to be empty. So I've added my details. I have a variety of sizes. I have some little things, I've got some middle-sized things, and I've got some big shapes. Everything's overlapping. Everything is there's shapes going off all four sides of the picture plane, and that's what we're looking for a good design for you. All right, thank you. Now it's your turn.